What is going on? It is Nate the Game Guy coming back with another video, and today I want to talk to you guys and share with you some of my thoughts about collecting for the Switch 2. Now, the Switch 2 has been a hot topic now for a little bit, especially now since we are past the launch of the Switch 2. There have definitely been some concerns within the game community, and of course there have been some pretty interesting titles, especially with the new Mario Kart. And I want to chip in and throw in my 2 cents about the Switch 2, kind of my thoughts about collecting for it and all that wonderful stuff. I recently got a Switch 2 past the launch date. I had a wonderful opportunity that came to me and I took advantage of it. So of course, I think it is now a relatively good time to share with you guys exactly what is going on in my mind about collecting for Nintendo's new era for their consoles. So without further ado, let's dive right into this video subject and take a look at what exactly is on my mind about collecting for the Switch 2 and go a little bit into some background about where I am coming from right after the intro. So obviously a lot of people have already talked about this already, but I've decided right here, I think I'm going to be a broken record and beat a dead horse anyway. And what exactly am I talking about? I'm talking about some of the prices for some of these games. Now, let's face it, Nintendo is pretty willing to charge $80 for some of these new games for the Switch 2, right? After all, the new Mario Kart literally costs $80 in order for you to pick it up. Now, I do have one Switch 2 game that you guys can clearly see right here, which was a $40 game, which is Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S. Now, I am in the camp of definitely not supporting these $80 prices. Now, of course, don't get me wrong, I am more than willing to add Mario Kart World into my game collection and give it a go one day. And I am very much aware that when it comes to Nintendo consoles, especially with the exclusive titles on their consoles, they don't really drop in price. They may go down a little bit. The original MSRP of whatever the original price was when the games would come out. But quite frankly, if you're looking for a deal on Super Mario Odyssey or whatever, right? You're not gonna find really an incredible deal. You're just not, especially now since, even with Switch 2 being out. That's just the way that it is. Now, I am willing to suck up some of those prices on the used market for games, but I'm not going to buy these games new is because I do not want to support the practice of saying, yeah, you know what, I think these $80 prices for these games that aren't really worth an $80 experience is completely okay. Here, take my money. And I'm very much well aware that my one purchase is probably not really going to be able to create that much of a dent, but it does at least will bring me some peace of mind in knowing that, hey, I'm not going to be supporting these business practices. But of course, that's where I'm at with some of these games for the Switch 2. I'm willing to pick them up brand new at $80. Yeah, not really. But, even if I just save $5 or not even save anything at all, as long as it's like a used copy, I'm willing to bite the bullet to, just say that I'm not okay with these business practices. I realize some people may think it's dumb, but you know what? That's okay. I got to do what makes sense for me. Now, of course, this is a concern that a lot of collectors and, of course, a lot of people within the gaming community have already discussed already. But, of course, I'm going to be a broken record. And after all, this is a concern that I already share with a lot of other people out there. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about the game key cards with Switch 2 games. Now, if you've been following the channel for a while, you already know that I am a huge protector and advocate of physical media. Not only because of the fact that it's nice to be able to use the game, whether it's on a cartridge or a disc or whatever, and use it on the original hardware, and the fact that it's more collectible, but also because you essentially own the game that you buy. Once you pay for the game, whatever, to add to your collection, your library, whatever, it's yours to keep forever. That's not necessarily the case with digital games. There's obviously, you're not really buying the game itself, you're just buying the license and essentially are getting permission to use the game. Not really going to go into crazy detail with it because there's already people out there in videos that already discuss that matter at hand. But what I am going to talk about is the fact with these game key cards, that's really going to be a huge determining factor of how many games I'm going to be adding to my Switch 2 library here in the game room. Now, of course, if it's a game that I really like and I really want to support, of course I'm going to get it despite the fact that it is on a game key card. But of course, I'm going to be a lot more in favor with those games that don't put it on a game key card. Now, I do realize with the original Switch, it kind of already had its own problem with that already, especially with games where you didn't necessarily get a flash card inside, but instead you got a digital code, especially with a game such as Overwatch, where literally you open it up, you've got the digital code, and literally no game inside. All it is just a download code with a case. Quite unfortunate, but of course with the Switch 2, it's kind of at a different level now. Now essentially you're basically getting a physical game license. Definitely not a fan of that. It's definitely going to be a huge determining factor of exactly, what I decide to put in my collection right here in the game room. And just, not really a situation that I'm in favor of. So what exactly am I going to be doing with my Switch 2 collection now that I've got all of my concerns right out of the way, discussed some of my thoughts right here in detail. I think you guys already know I'm going to be very selective as to what I decide to buy and what I decide not to buy here in the game room with the Switch 2 library of games. I can truthfully say that it's probably going to be not a very big collection as the years go by. With these game key cards, I really want to be able to own the game that I pay for. And clearly, I think that hurts not only the collecting side of these games, right? But also because, you just don't own these games fully. Sure, you may own the flash cart that the game might be on, but you don't necessarily own the game. You just happen to have a physical license in a case. Clearly not a fan of that. With that, don't be surprised if, heaven forbid, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now, some crazy amount of time goes by, you look back on the channel and you're like, oh yeah, Nate doesn't really have a big Switch 2 collection. Yeah, don't be surprised if that happens. It's just, I'm just not really a fan of a system that's not really going in with the whole physical media stuff. I think that unfortunately, it highlights a problem of what exactly is going on right here in the game industry. Clearly, the game industry wants to remove physical media. Because of that, we're seeing trends like this happening where, they're kind of trying to force the idea onto the consumer of you may buy the game, but you're not necessarily going to own it. And that's also a huge problem for me in my eyes, is because, with some of these games that are going to be enjoyable, and especially knowing how Nintendo is when it comes to emulation and ROMs, and how, once the servers are down with the Switch 2, what happens to those games that, sure you might have bought, sure you might have paid for, added them into your physical collection, but since we're talking about a license on a flash cart, what happens then when the servers shut down for Switch 2? Are essentially all these games going to just be paperweight? That's not an idea that I look forward to. And of course, with Nintendo, with how they are about, even with games that they don't re-release, they don't support or whatever, and it's heaven forbid if somebody downloads that ROM or whatever, or makes ROMs available for games that the only way that you can even play them is essentially buy a used copy from either a reseller or somebody trying to sell their collection or whatever. You know, it's not a good situation. Obviously, with all that in mind, I definitely plan to do with my Switch 2 collection, I'm only going to be getting games that, you know, I want to play. If for whatever reason I happen to buy a lot sometime in the future, or a bundle where it comes with other games that, you know, I may not be interested in playing, sure, I will add them into the game room. But ultimately, I'm going to just only be sticking to the essentials of what exactly I want to play with my Switch 2 library of games. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out my video. Please be sure to check out these videos here, here, and here. After all, I post a lot of content when it comes to game collecting tips, and other video game related subjects. So be sure to keep an eye out every Monday and Friday where I upload consistently, and I'll be seeing you guys next time.